Hello. So I just got I wanted to do in this session, like I could definitely design a lot of the systems, right? Which is still something I'm trying to get better at. But what I want to particularly focus in this session is just getting better at cultivating my software requirement gathering skills. And so this is kind of what I want to do in this session. So I just got this question that was called, how build a restaurant reservation system. And so I just want to clarify some questions. And like I said, I did not prep for this. So you're going to see how I'm going to ask questions, and it's going to be bad, but it is what it is. Okay, so I want to build a restaurant reservation system. And so I actually got this question by the Udemy course, which I can link later if anyone is interested. Um, but yeah, so restaurant reservation system. So it's pretty broad, but I think one of the first things that I think about, so I don't want to make any assumptions. So I think the first thing I want to do is clarify or I guess summarize what this is. So when I hear restaurant reservation system, the first thing I want to know is that is this for multiple restaurants or is this for a specific restaurant? I'm trying to hear the scalability of this. And so I think the answer for this, so is this for multiple or single restaurants? And I think the answer to that is most likely multiple since this is like a system design question, right? And so I will summarize it. I'll say, okay, so is this for multiple or single restaurants? It's for multiple restaurants. So I think the idea behind it is that this is going to be an application where different restaurants can set up their availability and different users can go on this application and book those different availabilities for the restaurants. Okay, so that's kind of my summary of it. Another question I can think of, and I'm curious, is remember, this is not here to create solutions. This is here for just simply gathering requirements. So I need to get better at breaking the habit. Um, I guess one thing I could think about, right, is that is this going to let users log in, for example? Is this going to be kind of one of those anonymous things where you can just like link your emails and numbers and then like that's kind of their way of identifying the user? Or does the user have to log in order to do these bookings? Um, yeah, so I think that's a question I should ask. I guess obviously we want to have users to log in, right? Because like if you liked a restaurant so much, you can add it as your favorite, for example, right? Or like recently viewed, for example. And so potentially we want users we want to let users log in, and I guess also we also want to give out the option where they can do it anonymously as well. And so when I say anonymously, I'm just saying that you put in your email and passwords, right, and you book that specific time. And I guess one of the problems with doing it anonymously, though, that first pops into my mind is that like that you can have some pretty bad spammers, right, that can just book all of it, um, book all of those different like if we had like 30 availability for one restaurant, someone anonymous, we could book all 30 technically, right? Because there's no identifier. So maybe we might want to leave out that option. I don't want to think too deep into that layer. So that's one thing to consider for sure. Is this going to be, I guess the other questions I have as well is that is this something that is going to be worldwide? Is it not going to just be in the United States? Are we going to find this inside Europe as well? Is this going to be in like Africa or Asia, for example? Is it going to be geo? I don't know what the term is. Is it going to be global? So is this product going to be global? And I guess the answer for that would be yes, right? Because we want this. It's a scalability type of question. Okay, interesting. Um, Another thing that well, again, I don't want to go so deep into the water, right? So, hmm, is this going to only be like a mobile app, or So is this going to be website and or app? And I guess it's going to be the option for both, right? If that's the case. Okay, so we want an app or a website where users or where restaurants can add their restaurant's availability. And then as a user perspective, I will log in, I will find the availability of a restaurant, and I would essentially book it. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And and then we also have to consider different time blocks, right? Because this is going to be geolocated, and we potentially are not potentially, but it seems like we're leaning more on the side where we want to let users log in, so they can, it avoids a lot of the problems where people can spam restaurants and book everything. It lets users have more like features such as having a favorite system where they can see the things they actually liked or recently saw. Maybe even adding, I guess one thing I'm also curious about is like the rating, right? So, so interesting. I guess I need to look more in the user perspective, right? Because like I'm thinking about this too easy. I'm thinking about like, users go in and they find the restaurants, but I'm not thinking about the middle part about like how exactly they're going to find the restaurants, right? And so like my question is how do users uh, find these restaurants in the first place? I think that by itself is probably a important topic for this restaurant reservation system. So, well, like, what type of filters do they have? Is my question. And I guess maybe some of the ideas that pop into my mind is like searching. Right, they have a searching functionality for the direct restaurants. We can also talk about geolocation, as in like what is within a certain parameter or I guess parameters not the right term, certain radius of where you're located at. There's also like some categories of restaurants, right, that you can pick from. And so, when we look at more into a user perspective, right? So, what do the users get out of this as well? So, users that are able to log in can favorite. They can recently saw, and they can also add some rankings or ratings to these restaurants. And I'm debating if we should add restaurants because this sounds like more of a review of the restaurants itself. But you can always rate availability, I guess, and rating is always is a great way for users to get immediate feedback. But yeah, I think this is what I could imagine to be all of the questions I would ask. That wasn't that great, but I think it was good to push me and to see what I need to work on. So I'm just going to see the answers that this guy posted, and maybe I could do this problem again to get better.